I think this is a very important gathering, and I did not realize of FICCI's longer term engagement with skills. You get a sense of it in that this is the 16th such event or summit that you have called for. It is representative of your long standing commitment to empowering our young people. This is the theme of this year's event as well, to have a conversation on and a way forward to be developed from this 2 day event on how we can actually energize our economy. It also converges with what we just celebrated in the World Skills Day, which Honorable MP and in a way a mentor to the skilling efforts, and also serving as vice chairman of the CAC, Chief Vikramji said, where it was called Bharat Skill Next. We had an event on 15th in the Bharat Mandapam. That was the theme on what next. And two reports, very important reports, a lot of legwork has been put in. You know, sometimes we just see the end product, it's a nice, snazzy document. But I guarantee it that because I was having many conversations with FRSN, with KPMG on both of these aspects, and they are both very, very important. I will get into that a little later on what these reports really represent. My ambition and desire for these reports is that you are all aware of the way governments have functioned in India, also how industry associations work. We are often very good at analyzing macro data and bringing it together and taking out a report. But what is the follow up on that report? How we can populate this framework and really make it a kind of an interactive feedback loop where we are getting not just the data driven but also the qualitative assessments of the one grassroots institution which has been active in our country on skilling for the last 4 or 5 decades, which is our ITIs. That is a big question that we populated for industry to understand it, to adopt it. This is not just a tool for students and their families to decide on which are the institutions where they want to have an opportunity to learn. It should also be a tool where industry can decide that these are the good, credible institutions which are having these academic programs and short-term courses as well, where the students coming out, the end product is eminently hireable, employable, and is a vital resource. So we want this framework to drive, careers, to also drive the kind of employment opportunities that come up through our vibrant private sector. KPMG is also a very important report. What FICCI has managed is to come out with the next gen skills. And I was just discussing with Vijayji, this is something that has to be an iterative process. Do we really understand what this truly means today? I speak to some of the tech majors, the major leaders in corporate world, and also people who understand technology and its impact on society. Everyone is a little bit confused. That is the frank assessment. Just recently, this 1 week, our markets have been in flux because our tech majors, the big kind of mainstay of our new digital economy, one of our largest exports coming out of our services, they have started laying off young people. Our formal education system, our protocols, where we say we want 15, 16 years of school, then we want 4 years of undergrad, and then we want to do a master's after that. I don't think these are engineered and tooled to deal with what KPMG has actually come out with. And regulators and the formal education system will always struggle. The only thing that can help us is if industry really takes ownership of this, drives it, co-creates from curriculum to the kind of protocols, really understands that they actually already have a stake in our education system. And this is where our NEP policy 2020 is quite visionary. I have to answer in parliament questions. So one of the hottest topics now, Vikramji knows, is AI. AI पे सवाल आता ही आता है. So I asked one day कि NEP 2020 policy, does it talk about AI? And I was pleasantly surprised that many sections explicitly mentioned integration of technology, including AI. So, in a sense, the kind of thrust of this policy is to open up the old world academia. The corridors of our universities, colleges must be opened up to the corporate world, to people who are engaged in deep tech, critical thinking, research, and to enable a value driven approach where these universities can really become a hub for this kind of innovation. We opened our doors to foreign universities, and put your hand on your hearts, because I know you have been aware of many efforts by major education majors who tried in the past to come to India, and they found that the door was not just shut, there was a big sarkari tala on it. Today, these universities are now beginning to have conversations that yes, we don't need Indian students coming and staying in, paying that exorbitant fees, traveling to UK or Europe or Australia or the US. Perhaps if the same facility and the resource can be developed here, and the impact it will have on upgrading the ecosystem, on upgrading the standards of academia, on enabling new research, on enabling industry academia collaboration, is something that we are yet to understand. That has also been enabled by NEP. The question here is, like in the climate change policy environment, that's an issue I've been tracking, I've been passionate about. And early in the day, I remember I visited European Parliament on this global summit, and the conversation that MPs from different countries in the European Parliament, representatives, were having at that time, and I'm talking about 12, 14 years ago, is that how do we price carbon? The conceptualization was, if you put a correct price on carbon, that will create the incentive structure for policy, for governments to adapt, to use the kind of mitigation that we need, and for industry to come on board. Similarly, I posit that currently we don't really have a price for employability, for skilling. Everyone understands, हाँ skilling में कम है, gap है, बच्चे निकल रहे हैं, we cannot hire them. Everyone understands that we need to invest more. But the young people who are actually getting certified, the young boys and girls coming out of our ITI or choosing to do a short-term 3-month program in PMKVY, or as a young artisan doing the PM Vishwakarma, becoming a part of our formalized economy through these programs, for them, if they don't see an immediate uptick in their livelihoods, or in the kind of salaries that they're drawing, or in their entrepreneurship capabilities and opportunities, then we are not really putting a value on skills. So as an industry body, I trust that FICCI is energized with this very important aspect. It pains me to my heart when I hear major industry majors say that हमारे यहाँ skilled लोग हमें नहीं मिल रहे हैं. Because in a way, we are all part of the problem and the solution. Industry must realize you have to pay higher pay scales for people who are certified. You have to put a value on that skilling and that education, on the applied work that the young people have put in. And specifically in certain trades, if we can create a consensus where we know. Abroad, you know what the standards are. You cannot just decide, I want to become a plumber and go and start advertising your services. There's a whole program you need to do. For every trade you can imagine, where we take it so casually, where we just go to any aggregator and say, I want this service. And that person is coming from some part of rural India, from Odisha, from Karnataka, from Bihar or Jharkhand, and is coming and giving it to us cheap. We want to buy that service very cheap. But as consumers, we are never looking at what is the certification, what is the quality, what is the standardization. Are we taking care of hazardous trades? Is that young person who's providing the service well informed? Most importantly, are they certified? So the same organization, the same big company in our country which will say, मेरे को hire करना है तो मैं IIT और IIM से लूँगा. But इस फील्ड में हर रोज हम लोग सर्विसेज में यूटिलाइज कर रहे हैं, हाईवे बन रहे हैं. हाईवे को कौन लोग बना रहे हैं? वो कैजुअल वर्कर्स हैं. वो जो इकोनॉमी है जो अभी इनफॉर्मल है, if we are able to formalize that will have huge ramifications for our national economy, for our national income, and for our workforce development. Currently, the global economy appears to be in flux, and I thank Bijayji for the strong sentiment that he put forth from industry. And of course, we need full support from industry. This is the kind of a conversation, and you could almost call it a battle that the government of India is currently engaged in. But we have decided that trade diplomacy cannot be at the cost of policy sovereignty. It has been clearly spelled out. National interest must be paramount. And I do feel that the support that industry is given, I think it's a strong message of solidarity that the government of India is also very sensitive to and alive to. In our skilling programs, I don't want to give figures, Scale is there. And we're doing things at scale. 1.6 crore have done PMKVY. 43 lakhs. Sir, आप 10,000 की बात कर रहे थे, 43 lakhs are under NAPS. So even 10,000 is just a drop, in the ocean. And this is a program, our apprenticeship program, which is actually perhaps the most demand-driven. Why I say it? Because in our PMKVY, if you look at the statistics, many times those young people are not completing the program. They choose not to get assessed or even certified. There can be many considerations. They could feel that this is not the program I wanted. The kind of education I'm getting is not what I perceived. Or I don't want employment in this sector. I did not understand it fully when I enrolled for this program. I want to go back to my village. I want to do something else. Multiplicity of those factors come in. But that is also a demand-driven program. Here, NAPS is completely demand-driven. You have NATS, which is under the higher education domain, where we say graduates should have a pathway. For the informal sector, people who have not completed graduation, we have NAPS. And now you have another layer on top, which is the Prime Minister internship program, which is supposed to be elevating this whole space, which is supposed to be aspirational, where they've curated it very carefully that we want the top companies with listed presence to really take leadership. So there's a variety of programs tailored, suited for different circumstances that we are running. We just need to remove some of the information asymmetries. And that is the basic thrust of what we've launched today, which is the framework. We have a data-driven grading system, which every year this report gets published. And Vikramji was mentioning it's a huge effort and a commitment and also a faith that the government of India has expressed in our capacity to work with states and with corporate India and to re-energize the ITI system. For the first time, 60,000 crores have been dedicated. Over 5 years, we have to spend it. But the thrust here, again, I say, is not on us spending the budget allocation. Once the scheme is designed, we'll get budget allocations. Like any other ministry or department, my thrust is not that tum kharcha karo. Our thrust has to see real value in that the money you're putting into this system sees real reform. And why it's a gargantuan exercise is because you estimate that almost 25-30% of our government ITIs have to be taken up. It's huge. Every state has to come forward. There's going to be tripartite agreements. Every industry cluster will have to be mapped out. ITI will have to be, in terms of a sister organization or a hub or spoke will need to be identified. There may be a SPV structure that is created on top where industry can come and say, we are part of this governance structure for this institution. Because you need to hire better and better paid instructors. You need to develop new courses, as the KPMG report has probably fleshed out. You need to develop new labs and bring in the kind of cutting edge equipment that is being used by global industry today. So our ITI students get exposure to that. You need to have career mentoring facilities provided to those young people so they understand what it is. Most of all, I want the experience to be elevated so that young people going to that Sarkari ITI could be a building created, 4 decades ago. When they enter it, like we revitalize our schools, we like to paint the boundaries, we are repainting it. Yesterday, I launched 25 libraries in rural government schools of Baghpat district in UP. Again, a work carried out by a foundation that came to us. We do all these beautification processes because we understand that for young people going into that building, seeing the design element, that should also convey that this is an aspirational institution and a program. So that design element is also a part of that 60,000 crores that we need to knock out. So I'm very hopeful. I'm energized. I think FICCI is energized, and the youth of our nation will also be energized. And with that, I just say that the future is not an abstract concept which is coming. I believe that the future of skills, the future of new tech and industry and disruption is already here. We just need to prepare ourselves. Thank you.